Oh, that's a great question because I think they're I'm all over the place as you are, right, John? I have fleeting moments. Do I wish it was a normal debate with no sort of negativity coming from our side? Yeah, but am I? We'll talk about. I think the rest. I think the majority of this pod will be talking about the reaction and the pod save boys and the calls from quote unquote Democrats. We'll talk about that eventually, but I think it's pissed off enough people that I almost feel like this was kind of don't get me wrong. I wish it went differently, but I think we are energized in a way that's different than if it went well. I think if it went well, we might have took our foot off the pedal and coasted a little bit. It's almost like when you are we both played sports, or even when you're on a roll at work, or when you think or you try to get a girl's number who might be out of your league. Like, I think it's often good enough sometimes to get humbled a little bit, where um, if you're on a team and you're facing another team and you take them for granted and they come out and they punch you in the face and kick your ass and win, it probably makes you better for the next game. You know what I mean? There's a lot of NFL teams who, when they get to the last game of the season, they don't want to rest their players anymore because if you take your foot off the pedal, it's almost hard to regain that speed. So my footing right now is, I think there was a little bit of that stumble the first 18, 24 hours, maybe a little bit now with the Sunday shows. We'll see what happens. We're recording this on a Saturday, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. But I think that we are energized and pissed off in a way that we probably would have never been the other if it went well. So that's where I'm kind of at right now. What about you?
Yeah, I agree, and I think that pissed off is twofold. One, we're not really frustrated with Biden. We're frustrated with the way the debate was handled. It turns out some people are saying I didn't see it firsthand. I saw it secondhand. That part of the agreement for Trump was that there'd be no fact checking. The fact that there was no fact checking was really problematic. Secondly, I think we're pissed off at both the weak need Democrats and the never Trump, some of the never Trumpers. But I will tell you, and I'm not sure you'd agree, some of the never Trumpers, like a Stuart Stevens, a Michael Steele, what's his name, the one guy, Rick Wilson, they're more hard to paint, and they're what I've always wanted from Democrats. They're that, like, no, this is when you don't get weak need, and so I'm getting frustrated with them. Obviously, all the editorial boards that sat there and have asked Biden to step down, who haven't said the same thing, and I know that, like, it's not the job of MSNBC or CNN to be the progressive or liberal version of Fox, but it just really upsets me and angers me that both have spent so much time on the should Biden drop out or not drop out when they've never done the same thing for Trump. But there's two things I want to point out. First thing is, I'm glad it happened on June 27th. It's the opening cycle. I think if you look at the way the rally went in North Carolina, I think subsequent appearances, and as you said, there's a fire that's been lit in the grassroots. Um, I think that Biden has a good summer. I don't think Trump has a good summer. Biden has a good summer. And so I'd much rather have this kerfuffle happen in June than September. And then I also wonder what changes between now and the September debate. First and foremost, if Biden has a good summer and if Biden gets a stride, because don't forget, now they've gotten back into it. I think they can figure out what they did right, what they did wrong. I mean, there's some elements there. So I do think that this is this sucks. I would never say this is a good way to start a campaign, but now I'm going to contradict myself. I'd much rather the as I said earlier, campaigns are manic depressive, they're bipolar, they're mood swingy. This is a bad start, but this is you can turn lemons into lemonade type really quickly. And if we look about some of the rallying, but I noticed something, and I wanted to ask you this, and tell me whether I'm just blocked off, different media, different sources, and maybe it's because of what's happening with some of the people on the left. I don't think that the Trump people are exploiting this as much as I expected them to. So first and foremost, am I right? I mean, they're not as coming as hard to paint. Now, granted, no one's paying attention to them because the Democrats, worrying and everything else, are doing enough for them. But do you get the feeling that the Trump folks, the GOP, is exploiting this, or they're waiting to maybe tomorrow, waiting till Sunday? But what are your thoughts on their reaction? I mean, we know that they're salivating and they're taking their shots, but I don't know. Maybe it's just because there's so much angst on the left and in the center that we're not seeing it. But what are your thoughts on the Team Trump reaction?
Yeah, I've noticed that. I haven't dug deep. Before we got on the episode, I went down on Junior's Twitter feed, and it kind of seemed a little light, despite what happened. Democrats took it as DEFCON 5, and maybe the Biden campaign will take it as DEFCON 5 and learn from it. But I agree. I can't pin it why. Maybe they don't want to get ahead of themselves, but that's not their nature. They always get ahead of themselves. I also saw an ad where Trump was pushing in all the swing states that might be effective for that crowd. And the ad was basically, if you vote for Joe, you're going to get Kamala in 2 years. And they're trying to obviously fearmonger people from the against the black woman. But yeah, I've kind of noticed that. Maybe we'll see what happens tomorrow. But ultimately, I think they're they're probably waiting in the wing. They have a sentencing coming up. They know negative press is coming eventually, and maybe they use it then, and they're holding up. But that's a good point. I also want to talk to you about. There's a few things. I was thinking about this. You know how maybe it's a good analogy because the Olympics are coming up. You ever watching Simone Biles or a track superstar, or I know we know the basketball, like we know enough about it, but when you're watching a sport you're not that familiar with, and they do something amazing, you're like, wow, that was like so amazing, and then the judges are like 6 out of 10. You're like, oh wow, I really don't know anything about this. I wonder if we know too much about politics that we didn't really have a unbiased view from the debate. What I mean is, people. You sent me the I think it was the Telemundo who had a kind of a live discussion group. There was other people. There was some polls, again, very early for polls, but there was some polls that showed people that thought Trump was just lying and Trump was pretty mean. And I wonder if we're so used to it that it doesn't fall on us like it would fall on somebody who's not paying attention all the time. Like me and you saw Trump and thought, yeah, that's what he is. That's what he always does every single time. But for someone who doesn't watch him, could it have more of an effect on them because they don't see it as often?